AskReddit by Bite AU Chocolate. What's a disproven parenting myth that way too many people still believe? To prevent allergies, avoid giving your child these foods until they are much older. It has been proven over and over again that exposing your child to traditionally allergy-prone foods in very small amounts when they are younger drastically reduces allergy potential. Even to the point of doing so in utero. Yep. I was told not to worry about eating peanuts while pregnant as it will not cause baby to become allergic and may actually help. Then we got to a discussion about my allergies, which are peanuts. She looked at me and said to disregard her previous advice about it being safe to eat peanuts. Had a bit of a giggle about that. Having a kid will cause someone to step up, straighten out, grow up, mature, etc. I have a family member that tried this. He and his girlfriend were addicts. They specifically decided that they should try to get pregnant as motivation to stop doing drugs. It didn't work. That non-verbal kids don't understand what you say. This one is common in the autism community. I work in dementia care. Lord knows this isn't the truth for either population. A lady I took care of several years ago was thought to be nonverbal and beyond the ability to understand speech. We were changing her one night, and she looked at me and said, "When does school start back?" clear as a bell. I was in college at the time. That a child shouldn't be exposed to a second, or third, language until having mastered their native language. I've heard this so many times from people who have no idea about multilingualism. My sister's first language is English, and her husband's is Spanish. They are both bilingual and speak both languages in their household. My sister remembers her daughter noticing when they switched between languages when she was well under a year old. She'd be watching them intently and do a little startle when they switched. Kids' receptive language develops earlier than a lot of people realize. Keep peanut products away from them until older. Giving them smooth peanut butter when they are on solids not only adds a good source nutrition but reduces the chances peanut allergy. My freaked out when she saw me giving peanut butter as my son's second food. Then she calmed down and read the research. After that, she was instrumental in adding my food allergies to my son's diet. I keep a kiwi-free home so to the severity of my allergy. She also got a real grin behind giving my baby tiny bites of chocolate. I'm also allergic to that. Dads are more than babysitters. It's been 20+ years since I was a single father, but the attitudes towards men and parenthood haven't changed as much as they should have. Don't ask a dad if he is giving mom a break today. Don't assume dad doesn't know how to settle down their child. Don't stare at dad at the park when dad is there with his kid. And for God's sake, can businesses install a change table in the men's washroom? Oh yeah, this pisses me off to no end. And no matter how many times we tell the school not to, they will only call my wife if there is some issue during the day. She is 100% unavailable during the day, while IWFH and can come deal with anything at a moment's notice. Once my poor kids sat in the infirmary for 2 hours because they were waiting for mom to return their call. Finally, she herself piped up and said, "Can you try calling my dad instead?" and I was there 5 minutes later. You would think they would eventually learn, but nope, still happens to this day. Picking up your baby too much will spoil them. FFS. Pick up a crying child and meet their needs sometimes, which is just a need for comfort and bonding with their caretaker. I had a lovely neighbor who told me no one looks back on their lives and says they held their baby too much. Go ahead, pick him up. Daughters are nightmares and sons are so easy to raise. The really disturbing part is women seem to believe this more than men. I've noticed it's not that boys are easier to raise, it's just that they don't bother actually raising their boys. That there is anything even remotely approaching a consensus on best practices when it comes to raising a child. I've only been a parent for 5 months and the sheer volume of confident, authoritative, and completely contradictory advice I've received has been staggering. As best as I can tell, Just work on keeping them healthy, secure, and loved, and try to muddle your way through as best you can on rest. Eater, folks, if you think you're the first to point out that everyone agrees that corporal punishment is, in fact, bad, you're not. I'd been including don't beat your child in the keep them healthy, secure, and loved directive, but thanks anyway. I've been a mom for over 20 years and I cannot tell you the number of times the advice has not only changed but done a 180 reversal. My eldest and youngest are over 5 years apart in age and I swear some advice reversed itself twice between the two. That all parents, specifically mothers, have an instinct that will kick in eventually and your child will be your world. Mine told me from a very early age that I wasn't the kid she'd wanted. I was ugly, fat, whatever. I finally ended things completely this year when she told me she's always hated me and never wanted me. I needed the closure. She made my life hell, especially since she had 2 kids after me that she loves. My daughter hasn't ever been shouted at, by that I mean raising my voice, hurt, or made to feel like less than the wonderful person she is. I suppose I can thank my mother for showing me how not to be. I just wanted to say thank you for breaking the cycle. That love, respect and fear are the same thing. They're fucking not. Is it better to be loved or feared? I want my kids to be afraid of how much they love me. Michael Scott School of Parenting. This destructive myth that we are owed respect and love from our kids. Nope. They are attached to us, yes, but love and respect are earned. Fear is not respect, guilt is not love. We chose to have kids, they had no say in the matter. It is incumbent upon us to reach them by mirroring the behaviors we value. This goes hand in hand with some parents thinking their kids owe them anything in return for meeting their basic needs. You see this especially when children become adults. Parents telling their adult children you owe me X because I fed you and gave you a roof over your head. It's utter bullshit. Your child never signed a contract saying that in order to be born, they owe you something in the future. Keeping a child safe, providing food and water, a roof over their head, etc. Those are basic needs that your child deserves. If you aren't prepared to provide those things, don't become a parent. Your kids don't owe you anything, not as children and not as adults. Respect is earned and not bought. A child's relationship with their parent, is not transactional. That you can tell if a stranger is a good parent by how their kid behaves in a random instance you happen to observe. As yes, the sample size of 1. The most statistically significant sample size. Throwing a cup of cold water in the face of a child who is having a tantrum will end it. My mother did it to us as children and it only ever escalated the situation. The kid is still screaming, now also scared, crying and soaked. Who TF thought this was a good idea? WTF, I've heard of giving a crying child a glass of water to drink. The theory is the child will take a second to focus on sipping the water. It's similar to an adult taking a few seconds to count to 10. But holy shit, there's a whole lot that got lost in translation between giving the glass of water and chunking it at the poor thing. My mom used to throw a cup of water on me to wake me up in high school, and hell hath no fury like someone who starts each day soaking wet and cold. I feel for you. Nobody regrets the kids they have, only the ones they don't. And if someone did regret having kids, they'd be utterly crucified if they ever said it out loud. Staying together for the kids is healthy. All it does is model unhealthy relationships for the child, and they'll grow up thinking it's normal for spouses to hate each other, fight, yell, etc. Edit. Yes, thank you. I am aware that divorce is also difficult for children and not a walk in the park, and that a divorce may not be financially possible for everyone. And that it's possible to have a healthy co-parenting situation in a marriage that's broken down. What I'm talking about here is marriages that are really dysfunctional, toxic, abusive, and getting a divorce is an economic option. The parents who are horribly unsuited to each other and are fucking their kids up by convincing themselves that their own shitty relationship is somehow okay to demonstrate. Lesser of two evils. And then they find out you stayed together for them. So much therapy. Men shouldn't change girls' diapers. My wife and I have twin girls. No way in fucking hell would I have told her to do both of them on her own. Hell, my niece was born 2 weeks after our girls, and when we visited I changed her if I was the one holding her and she needed it. Kids are resilient and will get over stuff without it correctly being addressed. No, we remember everything in our tiny and impressionable brains. You just have to tell them that they aren't thinking clearly, don't remember accurately, for 3 decades, then the problem will sort itself out. A quiet child is a happy child. My son's class is filled with iPad children, and my god do they all have about as much happiness and charisma as a sack of dead puppies. Well, that's a cheerful mental image, thank you very much. Let a baby cry in the cot at night, otherwise it will start getting used to it and beg for attention all the time. Well, crying is basically the only thing a baby can do to attract attention, so duh. Letting them cry doesn't work and only stresses the baby and the parents out. Also, don't assume that because they are very young, they don't understand things. Toddlers are fucking smart and perceptive. During their why phase, explain things like you would explain to anyone else. Answer every single why. Trust their intelligence and don't treat them like morons. It will pay off later. I'm not a parent, I'm an aunt, but when my niece or my friend's kids went through the why phase, I like to say ask a better question after the first couple explanation cycles. Got them thinking about how to get the information they were after and got them to a place where we could have a conversation. It's not illegal to have the interior light on in your car while driving at night. My parents were liars. Don't tiptoe in silence around your baby when they're asleep. Yeah, sure you'll wake up them once or twice, but teaching the baby to only really sleep in absolute silence is setting yourself up for many years of problems, not to mention what it does for them, insomnia, etc. Same for darkness, etc. You want your kid to be able to sleep through you having some friends over without having to all whisper to each other. Trust me. When my 3 were babies, I would turn the TV up when they slept during the day. I would vacuum, talk on the phone, etc. I now have 3 adult children who sleep through thunderstorms. There were 2 things that would wake them though. The sound of my butt hitting the toilet seat, and that first sip of a cup of tea. That boys don't need the same emotional support and safety that girls receive. This is throughout their lives as well. We need the exact same amount and we need the exact same space. Making your children hold hands after they've been fighting with each other will bring them closer together. No, more often than not, the reality is that it will drive them further apart and precipitate resentment. I've never heard of this, but I can just imagine my sister digging her nails into my hand or squeezing as tight as she can. You can spoil a baby by responding to its cries. If a baby cries, it needs something. Ugh, I had a friend with this attitude. Don't pander to her, she needs to learn. She's 3 months old. Saying that this mum friend wrote down every meal her son had until he was 3. I'm sure it's in here somewhere, but there's a lot of evidence that corporal punishment is contraindicated in disciplining a child for a multitude of reasons. One of my friends is a PhD psychologist who researched this, and even when she presents people evidence about this, they just say, well, I got spanked and I turned out fine, and it's like, well, did you really though? My understanding was that it shouldn't be done simply because it just teaches children that violence can solve problems. That's a good enough reason for me, but what other reasons are in this multitude? Your motherly instincts will just kick in and suddenly you'll love the baby and be an amazing mom. I'm sure that happens for some people. I have ASPD and have never felt that way towards the kid I gave birth to. There is not nearly enough education given to new parents that hey, You may not instantly bond with love this baby the very first day, and that is completely okay. As long as you find things improving over time and aren't feeling like you want to hurt or abandon the baby, you are allowed to give the process some time. They are also a hell of a lot cuter once they unfold from the angry potato just put through the squeezing machine stage of brand newness. That only mothers know certain details about the child. Had this happen to me a few times. For example, my sister, who has some boundaries confused, but that's another story, saw some cute shoes. She sent an app to my wife asking for the current size, but hadn't had a reply yet. My sister then looks in shock when I casually tell her what my daughter's shoe size is, like why shouldn't I know this? Giving drowsy medication will make sure they get a good night's sleep. Thankfully it's legally considered child abuse now. My siblings and I grew up being dependent on Benadryl putting us to sleep that we can't produce as much melatonin as we should. Now we all need supplements or crash hard after staying up for 3 days straight. You should finish your plate because kids in Africa are starving. No, if I'm not hungry, don't force me to eat. That working 16-hour days sweeping chimneys or down in the coal mines builds character in a 6-year-old. I don't know, my kids have flawless Cockney accents and break out into spontaneous choreographed song and dance all the time. Having a kid will change him into a responsible adult and or make him stay. That you have to be one. So many unwanted kids because of peer pressure and FOMO. When my grandma was in her last few weeks of life, her dementia made it so she didn't recognize me. She thought I was an old friend and told me straight up she hated having kids, hated being a mom, and resented them for taking her life away from her. Before getting pregnant, she was a dancer actress in San Francisco and was doing quite well. The way she spoke about her eldest son made me feel so sad for him. It's no wonder most of her kids came out so messed up. My dad luckily was the youngest and mostly raised by his dad. Threatening scaring your child into submission. Stranger danger. Yet forcing them to hug their uncle who they are visibly not comfortable with, yet happy to hug other family members. That there's a right way to parent. Clearly, I'm not talking about things that qualify as abuse. Breastfeed? Great. Bottle feed? Great. If your baby is fed, that's awesome. Let the baby set the schedule? Great. Work to get your baby on a schedule that works better for you and your family? Great. If your baby is healthy and cared for, that's awesome. And on and on. Every stage of parenting has some dichotomy of do it this way to be a perfect parent. Kids are all different. Families are all different. Do what works to develop an amazing human and keep your own humanness intact. I feel like form habits you can sustain is just generally good advice for people, but it's to me the best parenting advice anyone has ever given me. That being cold will result in you getting a cold. My partner is 50 years old and still thinks that if she gets cold in the winter, she'll develop a cold. Stranger danger. Much more likely to get taken, hurt, assaulted by a family member or friend. That a child must have a sibling, otherwise they'll grow up lonely and sad. I've known people who never got along with their siblings. Children don't have thoughts, feelings, or emotions of their own. Children never grow up. They'll be 14, or 8 or 6 or any other not adult age, for the rest of their lives. Children exist to serve the parent's hand and foot. Children are furniture, objects designed to make the parents look better. Eater. Sounds like I have more than a few metaphorical lost siblings out there. I know I'm just a stranger whinging on the internet, but remember that you matter. You matter to your friends, you matter to your pets, you matter to the people who have chosen to share their lives with you. You're stronger than you think you are. That it is okay to hit your child. See Monday. Who else can you legally hit who is guaranteed not to be able to hurt you back and is utterly and completely dependent on you? If you give your children medication, you're a lazy parent who doesn't want to deal with your child's behaviors. Hear this a lot in addict circles. Truth is, in most cases, not medicating can do more harm than good. Also, why would knowingly force your teenager to go through severe depression, anxiety and hallucinations when you can ease all of that with medication and therapy? Some kids need medications to get by in life just like some adults do. That children don't understand, and they are just exaggerating when they say they feel sick, depressed, etc. If your child feels sick, take them to the doctor. If your child is mentally unwell, try to get them help. And I say this as a child that everyone thought was just weird, too energetic, etc. My parents blamed my therapist for not fixing me in the, at that time, 2 years I was there, or threatened to take me to a psych ward if I didn't get better on my own. Yeah, still depressed lol, didn't work for some reason. Forcing a child to share an item that they don't want to when it belongs to them is somehow a good idea. I saw an episode of the Nickelodeon cartoon Rugrats when I was a kid, and one of the kids says, "Hey, leave her alone. She doesn't have to share if she doesn't want to." My mind was blown and my world shattered. I'll never forget hearing those words. Not sharing if I don't want to? That's allowed? Autism is caused by vaccines. Vaccines cause autism. No, vaccines cause adults. That you only have to put up with them for 18 years, and can kick them out as an adult. Maybe millennial parents forgot how traumatic that was. Kids today can't survive without financial support, at least. Parents, listen up. Kids are a lifetime commitment. You never get to cut off your child unless your actual life depends upon it. A month ago in the supermarket I saw an elderly couple, probably in their 80s. He had a brain surgery scar. She was pushing a stroller with their very disabled adult son in it. You never get out of being a parent. Abusing and neglecting your children doesn't set them up for success as an adult or prepare them for the real world. That if you're a woman who smokes, you should continue smoking while pregnant because the stress from quitting can have a negative impact on the baby. I wish this myth would die already. The brief period of stress from quitting is nothing compared to the effects daily tobacco consumption will have on a developing fetus.